2016 with Studio Major's budget. We knew what the numbers were. It wasn't affordable. So why would we spend $40,000, I'm assuming? He got $80,000 for the drawing up the bid specs and the bridging documents. Why would we want to waste more money on bidding anything other than a $900,000 project? So we did a $900,000 project, and the scope of work was supposed to be for the $900,000 project. If you turn the page, this is where the bids came in. Town Hall A, the bids ranged from $3,995,000, $3,018,000, $3,500,000, $3,405,000. So 3 of the 4 bids for Town Hall came in under his estimated budget of $3.5 million, and 1 came in over. Now we look at Police B, which is the bids for the $900,000 scope of work, and they came in at $2,680,000, $2,403,000, $2,494,000, and $2,770,000, roughly. I dropped some numbers on there for the hundreds. Who cares about the hundreds? So the bids came in between 2.4 and 2.7. All right. For a full renovation, the next sheet, if you look at the sheet, the long legal size sheet, that's the bids from 2016, in which the MDRTF had access to, and Mr. Sakosha had access to. You had all of Studio Major's work product and bids and specs and everything. So this is, if we look at the way this is broken down, if you look at the first column, when you come down to the A in the column, that's the Kendall Dean subtotal, and B is the Bushy building subtotal. And it's broken down into 16 divisions of different types of expenditures of the construction. If we go across the line and we look at the bids that came in 2016, ADS bid $2,755,000. Track Builders, so this is for the base bid, by the way, came in at $2,472,300. Tower Construction, $2,854,000. And Iron Construction, which didn't meet the criteria, the bid wasn't allowed, $2,342,000. So, if you look at the next list, oh, and I pay attention to, by the way, you might want to focus on the costs for the plumbing, the HVAC, and the electrical in those 3 bids. That would be number 13, 14, and 15. Those categories. Each of those sets of numbers comes up to roughly $900,000 for the MVP. Okay. If you look at the doors and windows, you'll see those 223,000, 191, 85, 312,000 doors and windows. And just a footnote, in 2016, it was mostly doors at Bushy. I don't believe there were any windows. They were going to do the windows later. They still had a useful life. They knew the budget was tight. They knew they wouldn't have money for the windows, so that was the thought at that time was, we'll do the windows after. So his specs called for maybe 3 windows tops. Windows that were broken. So this is where the bids came in. If you look at the next page, that gives you a comparison. 3 of the bidders were the same bidders who bid the first time. The Bushy Annex, 2016, for the full renovation, for the base bid only, from ADS, $2,755,000. In 2018, for the scope of work that was supposed to come in at $900,000, $2,770,000. Pennies off between a full renovation from 2016 and the $900,000 partial renovation that he said would be done. Track Builders, $2,472,300 in 2016. And in 2018, for the partial, $2,680,000. Tower Construction, $2,854,000 in 2016. For the partial, $2,494,400 for the reduced scope of work budget. Towson Corporation didn't bid in 2016, but they bid $2,403,682 in 2018. So it's kind of remarkable that you had all the numbers from 2016. We knew what a full renovation would cost in 2016. And the bids that came in for this newest proposal on Kendall Dean were in that same exact range, $2,300,000 to $2,755,000 in 2016, 2014, $2,400,000 to $2,770,000. So that's rather strange. I would like to know what exactly was in the scope of work that was issued for the bid specs that was within the $900,000 budget. Again, I'm stressing again and again, your motion was to authorize him to draw bid specs for what he proposed on the 22nd, which was a $900,000 renovation. So I want to know what was being done in that renovation, where he thought those cost estimates would come in where they were. How extensive was the renovation? What types of things did he do in each floor? Did we make any major changes? Plumbing, if you could give us a description of what was involved in the plumbing costs. What was involved in the windows and doors? How many windows and doors was he doing? Was this just, I mean, he didn't mention the doors at the meeting on the 22nd. He said roofing, windows, environmental cleanup, upgrade of retention area, and provide a new sally port. For roofing, I'd like to know if his bid specs that were issued in 2018 for the partial included a whole new roof for the Bushy building. I'd like to know if he added air conditioning, cooling, rewiring, repiping, and upgrade of physical plant for electrical and plumbing throughout the building. I'd like to know if he added to the electrical service, to the ventilation, and if he replaced the fire alarm system. I'd like to know if he included costs for the parapet and the flashing work, because the contractors all felt in the bid specs and the question and answer period that was very important, and they wanted to know if it was required, and I want to know why we didn't do that if that was something that everybody felt was essential, if in fact he didn't have that in there. The other thing I'd like is when Mr. Sakosha, when Studio Major went out to bid, you got a 16 division breakdown. But when the bids came in for this project, this is the 16 division breakdown of the bid. When the bids came in for this project, you got the total and the add alternates. You didn't get a breakdown by division. I'd like to hear from Mr. Sakosha if that's customary, that you never request the 16 division breakdown. My understanding is that it's done on whether it's a design build model or the regular traditional bidding. The bids are always provided in that way. And I'd like to see that. If you did get a 16 division breakdown, I'd like to be provided with that. I'm a little concerned because the bidding didn't follow the normal procedures. That wasn't provided to me by the town, the 16 division breakdown, when I asked for it. So if there is a 16 division breakdown, where did that come from, and who received it? Because it wasn't, I don't believe, in the packet of information at the bid opening that we got. So if it does exist, I would like to see it. I'd like it to be public. I would like to know if Mr. Sakosha would share it with us in his history of however many years he's been in the job in this field, and from Mr. Chamberlain as well, if he'd like to say anything. How typical is it for bids to come in 2.5 times to 3 times the projected cost of the project? If you were designing bid specs for a $900,000 project like you were authorized to, then I would like to know how many times it occurs that the bids come in that often in a lifetime of a career. I'd also like to know if he's worked with these 4 bidders on any other projects, if he thinks there was I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how this happens. I've never heard of a bid coming in so ridiculously over budget. So, is this something that happened between the bidders, or is this a problem with, what did happen? I have the recording of the MBRTF meeting where he shared information with the building committee about why he thought the bids came in so high and what the issues were. But you've never heard that, and he's never shared that with you. And I'd like you to hear that. I mean, I also continually heard there were going to be 30 employees. I'm sorry, I'll forget that. I won't even go on down that path. And I did want to know why, if there were 2 motions passed, as Mr. Oshia pointed out, why they didn't move forward, because the second motion directed them to move forward and review and reduce the scope of work for the rebid, and it never happened. I do want to point out that if there's any issues with the current builder, you were, Mr. Calson's company, Calson Corp., was recommended on the review by Mr. Sakosha of Mr. Calson's credentials, plans, budget, all of that information. And I'd also like to know if there was a sewer line in KD in the elevator pit, because Mr. Vadney corrected me when I said there was, and I have the plans at home that show it was, but you said it wasn't a sewer line, it was a wastewater line, which to me is a sewer line, but I don't know if we're calling it different names, but I'd really like to know if it was there, and if that was explained to the contractor in the bid specs, that there would be the need to move a sewer line. And I'd also like to hear some reassurances on the elevator. I've been to a number of the MDRTF meetings. There was problems when that elevator was being installed with the elevator pit and the water level in that area, and continually refilling with water. They've now changed sump pumps. They've gotten a larger sump pump. I've heard enough that I know I never will step foot in that elevator. Just I'm paranoid about being trapped in an elevator. I have a fear of closed spaces, so I'm not going to gamble in that little elevator. But I would like to hear some reassurances from Mr. Sakosha that that is not going to be a problem down the road, that he's confident that the water situation is fully remedied. Because I think in the past when that was discussed and the potential for a high water table, if I recall at the PBIC meetings when that was discussed as a possibility, that was a very expensive and costly thing to correct if the water table was too high. So I guess that's it for him, and my questions for him. But I have other questions, if we keep going through this packet, regarding the school, the Kendall Dean building. The next item that we should have, if we had kept going before we got off the cost issues, the letter from Moses, Alfonso, and Ryan at the letterhead at the top, and that's the opinion from bond counsel on are we in compliance with the bond requirement language if only the business offices move in. And she said as long as you have the business offices moving in, you're good, basically. So now that we don't have the business offices moving in, is the town in possession of a letter from bond counsel saying we're in full compliance with the bond language requirements and there is no issue? Do we have such a letter? I'd also like to know, the next document I've attached is Exhibit B4, which is referred to in the bond question, and that was a plan that was voted on by the town council at the meeting at which they voted to put this item on the ballot. And they adopted this plan first so that there would be a record of what exactly was going to be expected and what the consolidation was going to look like. And I know we talk about consolidation of services as opposed to consolidation, period, and savings, but there were savings that were discussed through consolidation of heating one building for roughly, 12 people. In the old days, there used to be like 12 Kendall Dean school department employees in Kendall Dean that use 17,000 square foot building. And we have, what, maybe 18 or 20 town employees. So there would be savings if we used that building for 32 people. We're able to shut down Andrews School and save them and split the cost of heating and electrical and maintenance and upkeep and all of those good things. So that it wasn't just the consolidation of services of the business offices, but it was those types of savings as well. And I want to remind you that on July 17th, 16th, or 17th, I don't remember the exact date, it was the meeting at which Mr. Vadney came before you and said these are the documents that we'd like to issue for bidding, and you authorized him to do so. That, again, at that meeting, I suggested before we go in one step further, and before you waste another penny, could we share these plans with the stakeholders, being the school department, show them to them, make sure it's okay with them before we continue going down this path. And there was nobody who jumped up and said, yes, that's a good idea, let's do that. And now we find nobody's moving in there. So if we had done that from the beginning, that whole configuration might have been quite different. And I wonder, and I'm candid here, in the back of my mind, I couldn't understand why nobody wanted to do that. But I thought afterwards, well, if you do that, and you hear from the school department that they're not going in, then you're stuck with the bond issue of not consolidating services. So if you know they're not going in, I wouldn't ask the question, because once they tell you they're not going in, then you can't go through the routine and the ritual of putting in a handful of offices for school department employees under the guise that they're going in there. Because if they had told you way back when, we're not going in there, you would have had to use the space more efficiently, and you also would have had to deal with bond counsel as to what do we do now? Because this is what the bond said, and now we're not able to fulfill it. So I still to this day can't figure out why nobody was interested in knowing the answer to that question. I also, the next document, which is stamped draft, not for public release, is a two-page document that I received when I filed the APRA request for all the documentation regarding where the school would be going. I filed a lengthy APRA request, and this was provided in that. And this is a plan, I believe, from 2017 by Sakosha Associates, and it just coincidentally, I guess, exactly aligns with the plan that we have now, where the school offices were supposed to be for the business offices, and the conference room is for the business offices and the accounts payable. In the left corner, if you look at the enlarged diagram, that area that's labeled in 2017 future expansion and conference room is where you had planned to put the business offices. What a coincidence that worked out so well, and that somebody felt compelled to draw these plans in 2017 after we've been hearing for 3 years from Mr. Vadney that the school department was coming in the building. Why would we even try to draw plans that didn't include the school department? And isn't it nice that it worked out perfect? That's a perfect match. The other item I have attached is the APRA request that I filed on November 8th, and I asked for a lengthy list of things, opinions, letters, emails, anything dealing with where the school was going and are we in compliance with bond counsel. Many items I was given, minutes of all the school, the BRTF minute meetings, and all their minutes, which were all on the Secretary of State's website. I was particularly interested in minutes that had an agenda item called the school department issue of not moving into the building or something of that lines, to give the public an inkling that they were actually, there was an issue with the school not moving in there, something to that effect. But that was not on any agenda. And so I said, where's an agenda that shows, that there was a discussion about anything dealing with the school, and I was given every agenda they have, but that wasn't what I had in mind. But if you go to F, starting with F on like the 5th page, these are the items that I wasn't given, and they're mainly emails And these documents are exempt under Rhode Island Law General 38.224-M, and no portion of these documents or records contain reasonably segregable information that is releasable. I don't understand how, let me see, what's the total number here? $75 emails between different people, the town administrator, superintendent of schools, chairman of the school committee, all the school committee members, Mr. Vadney, school committee chairman, Mr. Sakosha, Mr. Kozowski, tons of emails discussing the school situation, which they felt were what I was looking for, but they're exempt because they're emails. But even if a document meets the exemption, if it can be reasonably and easily segregable, the factual information from the hello, nice to see you, wasn't it pleasant at dinner the other night type stuff, which you just simply redact, none of these 75 emails apparently they felt could be redactable of the personal information. So I will be appealing that before the Attorney General, but I am concerned that some of these emails seem to suggest there was an awful lot of correspondence going back and forth about the school issues. And since you gave me some emails that were exempt under that same provision, but you chose to release them, the town did provide me with some, I don't understand why you wouldn't want to share these unless there's something in them that you don't want to be made public. I mean, you're free to release any information you want. Even though the law says you can withhold them, that doesn't mean you have to. And you chose to offer me some emails that were about the topic, and you didn't redact anything, you just gave it to me. But for these 75, they weren't. Under G, again,